When I first got into the field, I had this vision of what a doctor psychologist was going to be like. It was the white lab coat and, helping people, and it was all this biology stuff. And I thought it was going to be like being a real doctor until I realized that we're not real doctors. I didn't notice that there was anything wrong with what I thought about psychology and the field of psychology really until my graduate school, when I got out to California and I started, seeing bits and pieces of research that just didn't add up. And then it really wasn't until I went to a conference outside of school where I actually heard a lot of information that was in contrast to what the school was teaching me. And I went to the conference because a colleague of mine, a student, had said, you really need to go to this type of conference. You're going to really like what they have to say there. Knowing that I was already starting to question the main theories and ideology of psychology. And I saw this doctor in a short period of time talk about these 4 false pillars of the medical model, which really undermined all of psychiatry and psychology, anything related to a biological cause for mental suffering. And they talked about the chemical imbalance, the genetic studies, and the brain scans. And within an 8-hour period of time, he literally undermined every major tenet of psychiatry and psychology. As I walk out of the conference, I feel angry. I have a whole host of emotions going inside of me going, what have I been doing for the last 6 years of my life or 5 years of my life in school? I'm like, they've lied to me. I've been studying textbooks and reading things that I know now aren't true. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I have the information, I have the degree, and so I feel like I have to step up to the mic if I have this information and I have to share it. I mean, if I didn't do it, I don't think I could sleep at night. Psychiatry has not only misled the general public, but psychiatry in general and the pharmaceutical industry has misled the media, the politicians, legislation. When you have billions of dollars at your disposal, it grants you access to all of them to give false and misleading information. And the problem is that these people are not trained or equipped to ask the tough questions of asking for proof, of evidence about their false and misleading claims that mental suffering is somehow a biological disease. In psychiatry and psychology, there are no medical tests, no scans, no blood work that can diagnose anybody with a mental disorder. When they come up with a diagnosis, they literally do it by a show of hands, based on a vote. That is totally unlike any true medical illness where people have true physiological tissue damage or there's an actual test to verify whether somebody has a medical condition or that they don't. If you have diabetes, you have it in every country around the world. If you have cancer, they can take it out of you and hold it and feel it. When you have ADHD, you can't hold it, you can't touch it, you can't see it. There's no way to medically verify it. It is a socio-cultural phenomena. If we like it or we don't like it, we can either label it or not label it. That is not a true medical condition. Definitely not a brain disease. We now have 1 in 5 individuals in America taking a psychiatric drug, only to find that these people taking these drugs now are causing more crime, having more disability, increasing more problems, suicide, homicide. Our culture is not looking at the problem that the medications and the diagnosing and the medicalizing of normal behaviors is making us worse. I can remember not that long ago when we used to have a war on drugs and everybody was supposed to stop taking drugs, and they lost that war because they couldn't control it. But then something interesting happened. All of a sudden the market got flooded by psychiatric drugs, which aren't that much different than the illegal drugs. And interestingly, the street drug dealer and the psychiatrist aren't all that much different, except for the fact that the street drug dealer won't tell you that you have a chemical imbalance. The street drug dealer is not going to tell you that you need to take his drugs, his cocaine. He's not going to tell you you have a cocaine deficiency. The psychiatrist, he's going to lie to you most of the time and tell you that you need the drug, that it's not going to be harmful to you, it's not going to be addictive, and that it's going to help correct some sort of chemical imbalance or genetic defect. In that case, for that type of psychiatrist, the street drug dealer is more ethical. And I'm not anti-med, I'm anti-misleading people. Let's not lie to people about it. Let's not pretend that this is medicine. Let's not pretend that this is going to correct something or somehow it's a treatment. This isn't a treatment, this is a drug. Just like any other drug, it's going to mess you up, it's going to screw you up. Let's just not lie to people about it. Let's not charge insurance companies. Let's not have the government pay for it. And God forbid, let's not give it to young little children. We're taught as parents to look out for our children. And we know we can look for street drug dealers and we can look for predators and all sorts of things. Are we taught to look out for psychiatrists or for drug company commercials that lie to us on TV, to realize that these are lying and misleading? Because the odds of getting caught by one of those predators is much higher. With today's screening practices and almost mandated screening practices now, it's almost impossible for a child not to get a label of mental illness between the ages of 0 and 18 years of age. When we have screening devices that are being put into the schools that have an 80+% false positive rate, when we know that the vast majority of these kids who take it are going to ping high on their checkoff list to say they have a mental illness, even though they have nothing wrong with them, knowing that we're going to get them on medications, because if you make a referral to a medical provider, 9 out of 10 times they walk out with a prescription. 90%, if you walk in for any sort of issue, you're walking out with a drug. Psychiatrists and psychologists are taking normal reactions to everyday normal experiences and then pathologizing that. It has nothing to do with biology. It has to do with power and control and what we think is appropriate or not appropriate behavior. I didn't choose this career path. I didn't wake up one day and say, gee, I can't wait to go up against drug companies and psychiatrists and court systems and CPS, Child Protective Services. I didn't choose this. It chose me. Whatever the reason, I had a life path, and all of a sudden I got this knowledge. I have to honor that knowledge and spread it. And so that's what I'm doing, is I'm passing it on. Doctors need to realize that there are groups out there that really are looking at the ethics of our practice, willing to be honest about what psychiatric diagnoses do, what the quote-unquote treatments really do to people. I want more people in this field doing this type of work. And this call of action is happening. I have more professionals, more colleagues, more psychologists, more psychiatrists speaking against their own profession now. This is what we need to be doing for our humanity. If humanity is going to survive, we need people to fight as hard as the psychiatrists and these drug companies who are all making billions of dollars feeding the public and the politicians and the courts false and misleading information. We need to stop, and we need to start getting our society back on track. What I'd like to see happen would be the American Psychiatric Association sued for presenting false and misleading information to the general public, which is leading to harm of millions of children and adults across our country. By labeling people, we're stigmatizing people. It's normal for people to have problems in life. It's not normal to label it and try to make profit off of it.